me, and thanks everyone for coming. Um, can you hear me okay?
Yeah,
Okay. All right,
and
cool.
everyone else, if you could just try.
Yeah. Sometimes I'm a little quiet, so let me know if I need to speak up, okay?
Okay.
Um, yeah, cool. Well, yeah, I appreciate the introduction and also just all the work that Network for Developing Conscious Communities is doing. I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio, and my parents were community organizers. They actually met in St. Louis when my mom interviewed my dad for a community organizing position. And my mom's side, we're Mexican American on my mom's side, so we're Chicanas, and my dad's side's white, so I'm mixed, but like um, he did a lot of really good work using worker co-ops as a tool for racial and economic justice in Cincinnati. So I was lucky to grow up with that as a model. And um, so I think co-ops are a tool, um, worker co-ops included, and you know, however we use them, we can use them for different aims. And to me, that's where a lot of that really important stuff is, right? Where like social justice and caring for each other, building community. To me, that's kind of where I'm coming from personally with co-ops. And um, and so let's see here. Just a second here. I got a little computer glitch. Okay, sorry. And so that's really important to me. And as we go through this, I'm going to have there are two sessions on work co-ops, and it's, like kind of a place to start. And today I want to provide more of a framework for some of the basics and engage y'all on where you're coming from. I really want to hear from you all, have you, be able to kind of lead some of the direction. And then in the next session, we'll go a little more in depth and also talk about what do some of these things look like in practice, especially when there are challenges, right? Or how do we build this really cool vision that we have to build a healthier community, right? So that's a little bit more about where I'm coming from. Um, another thing is, yeah, I live in Milwaukee right now, and I'm a loan officer at Shared Capital Co-op. Um, Transitioning into an educational role there, but yeah, it's really exciting to be here. So let's get started, shall we? And I'm going to get my PowerPoint up here. So, all right, can you all see that? Oops. Okay, so you can see the PowerPoint, right? Let me see here. Yes. Okay. Thank you, Deb. Um, awesome. So yeah, and I'm also a worker owner at the Ajani Group, which I'm very proud of. I'll share more about that later. But um, okay. So yeah, so and throughout our pictures from most of them are my pictures, but some of them are not. But I try to note where they're from at the bottom. So a lot of these are worker co-ops or worker cooperators, people in worker co-ops. So like this group here is a mix of Mumble Media, Nick's Pizza, and a group called Freedom Dreams up in Canada. They're all worker co-ops. And today we're going to cover some basics that we're going to cover are definition and history, principles and values, like why they matter, benefits of worker co-ops, and start talking about operations and getting involved. And just, I want to, and throughout, I'll share a bunch of resources where you can keep learning. So to start off, I just wanted to ask, um, maybe we could do a little go around where if you want to just say your name, where you're coming from, like whether that's physical or your organization, and then what would you like to get out of today? So, um, I'm just going to call folks' names as I see them on the screen because sometimes like the popcorn method is like it's hard to keep track of who went already or not. So I'll just call out your name if you don't mind, and if you don't mind just sharing like what you want to get out of today. And I'm going to stop sharing for a minute so we can see each other. And if you want to turn on your video, that'd be great. But, you know, I get it if not. So first up is Kelly.
Good evening, folks. I'm Kelly Liddington, and I'm working as a cooperative developer with Carolina Common Enterprise. I'm near Charlotte, North Carolina. And I wanted to see what some of the basic steps are going to be for starting worker co-ops.
Nice, thank you. Next up, we have Deb.
Hi, I am in Baltimore, Maryland, and I am here for myself and my husband, who does some consulting with Black-led nonprofits. And we were meeting with somebody who's in a co-op. So we wanted to understand better what he's working with. And then I also have realized that I think down the line, that's the kind of business I would like to be cultivating. So just wanting to learn more about how they work, how they're different from kind of the typical nonprofit or for-profit small business.
Thank you, appreciate that. Let me read, yeah, okay. And then we have, and tell me if I'm saying it wrong, Lyman and Mickey.
Aloha from Hilo, Hawaii.
Hi,
Uh, we're
hello.
we're farmers.
Ahui-ho, you know. Um, yeah, we're actually looking to possibly create several cooperatives working together. A farming cooperative. Did you want to say this? I'm sorry.
No, jump
Okay.
in there. You're right on.
A housing cooperative. And
Also, in Hawaii, they have something called the aupua'a, which is very roughly speaking, the space along a stream where there's farms, and it's a community idea, and it's also today what I'd like to do is connect the farmers along the Aupua'a, which is along a stream usually, and so that they can work together to protect the land and the farms and create community at the same time. So that's rough
Nice.
what we're thinking.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
oh,
Awesome. Well, welcome. Next up is Carolyn.
Hello, everyone. This is Carolyn Ross Holmes. I am with the Ella Baker Educational Project of North Carolina. So I'm here in North Carolina, right at the Virginia-North Carolina border. And I'm particularly interested because of Ms. Baker's association with cooperatives. What we're planning to do next year as an organization is to introduce the cooperative business model in the different sectors in which it can impact as a part of our programming. So I'm particularly interested in having, again, this is my ground floor understanding of it, and then to be able to have the resources that I can have in place to support the communities that we are able to bring together. So for me, it's also going to be a community building project as well as introducing co-ops. We're in rural North Carolina. And so in my mind, co-ops are the answers to so many things.
Nice.
So yes, thank you.
Thank you. That's really important. That's really exciting work. Thank you. Appreciate it. Um, let's see here. Next up, we have Daniel Baker.
Hi, I'm Dan Baker. I'm in Greenfield, Massachusetts, and I'm a builder. I've been like a self-employed contractor for a while, like 3 or 4 years now, and I work with a bunch of other self-employed contractors. Basically, we hire each other and stuff, and I would like to like more formally pool resources. I'm also working with Valley Housing Co-op in the area here, and they're doing some really cool things with buying up and making affordable housing for people. And I want to like kind of work hand in hand with them to like build and maintain properties and stuff. And I want to know how to do this. I just want the nitty gritty of like how to build these structures and stuff and get people together to do this.
Nice, thank you. I love that. Wait, what's a food co-op out in Greenfield? There's another name for it, right?
There's Greenfields Market. It's just
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, it's just yeah. I love that.
it's just Greenfields.
Yeah, Greenfield's cool. Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you for coming. Next up, we got Robert White the Third.
Good evening. Hopefully you all can hear me. I'm outside walking and it's quite windy. I'm
Yeah.
coming to you from St. Louis, Missouri by way of Brooklyn, Illinois. Brooklyn, Illinois is America's first Black incorporated town. Very under-resourced, undervalued, uh, underrepresented community. And so I want to gain a base level understanding of co-ops to potentially use as an economic tool.
Nice. Thank you. That's great. I'll be in St. Louis visiting family soon. So great city. Awesome. Next up we have, let's see here. Um, Deborah Washington. Did you go yet? Deborah Washington? Okay. Well, we can come back. Next up is Alejandro. Okay, that's cool. We got some note takers. Um, Bronzeville Growers note taker. Oh, that's a note taker. Oh my gosh, sorry. And then we got Antosia, and then Naima Kearney.
Hi, my name is Naima. I'm from Alexandria, Virginia, near Washington, D.C. I've been learning about cooperatives thanks to NDCC's program, and I would like to learn more about the different types. I'm coming more from a farming cooperative lens as far as the group, but I would, like to see if the potential implications for making it like a working owned one.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you. Um, yeah, we can we can touch on farming some while we're here. Next up is Nathaniel Card. Okay.
Howdy. I'm Nathaniel, tuning in from West Hampton, Massachusetts. I'm here because, in general, just to get a better idea of what it takes to start a co-op. I'm uh, very interested in overlapping co-op formats, member, worker, producer, and how they can all um, work together in some way to support adaptive reuse and ecological landscape design and community repair. So that's what I'm focused on.
Nice. Thank you. Awesome. Well, and then um we have Robin in chat and also Anotisha. Oh, and so thank you for sharing in chat. Did anyone else want to share before we move on? who didn't get to share? Okay, well, let's keep going. So next, I have a question for you all. Can you mark in chat if you have engaged with worker co-ops in any way, if you've been a worker owner or a co-op developer or anything like that? Just like write in chat if you have and what you've done. Okay, so maybe not too many. That's cool. Well, this is exciting then. We got some fresh faces to the worker co-ops working on it. Oh, okay. Member of the Greenfield Farmers Co-op Exchange, member of a retail co-op. So we do have some folks who have been part of other co-ops. Working member of a co-op grocery store. Awesome. So yeah, so today we're going to talk specifically about worker co-ops, which is exciting, but they all interrelate, right? There are some overlapping values. Oh, nice. Awesome. So let's see here. And then I think, let's see, Lori, do you want to share your name and where you're coming from and what you want to get out of today? I see you just joined, so I just wanted to give an opportunity. Yeah, feel free to drop it in chat. Yeah, whoever didn't get to go yet, you can just drop in chat if you want to share.
Hi, Esther.
Oh, hey. Oh,
Hi,
wait.
Esther.
Oh, hi. Hi, Lori. Hey, how's it going? Sorry.
I'm doing good. Hi, y'all. Thank you. My name is Lori, she, her, pronouns. I'm calling in from Ohlone Lands, also known as the Bay Area in California. Just sharing space with y'all for more information. Part of Mixed Collective in the co-op development world and just hanging out with y'all. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Appreciate your being here. Awesome. So, all right. Well, we're going to keep on going. So, I wanted to frame a little bit about the context of worker co-ops. So, I want to note that workers matter. Okay, we don't always hear that, right? Like we're not always told that in the general population. Like that it matters, that workers matter, right? And also being a worker in the United States can be kind of rough. So, for example, here's a chart showing the history of minimum wage, federal minimum wage. Right now, it's at $7.25 an hour, which is not much. Um, pay ratios of the lowest pay, these are pay ratios of the lowest paid person to the highest paid person at these different businesses. So a big thing with co-ops is there's more equity. And you can see like the average in a conventional business, the pay ratio disparity is like the highest paid person gets paid more than 300 times the lowest paid person. That's a huge gap. Do you think they're doing 300 times as much work? Or in the case of Coca-Cola, it's 1,883 times as much as the lowest paid person in that job, in that company. In worker co-ops, it's 1 to 1.45. That's a big difference, right? There's a gender pay gap. So for every dollar that white non-Hispanic men earn, women get paid significantly less as a general trend, right? Especially BIPOC women. So I think it was like October 3rd or something like that. I think it was October 3rd or 23rd was Latina Equal Pay Day. And that's like the day that the average Latina would have to catch up to get paid as the same as a white dude. And yeah, October 3rd. Okay. And these are for different demographics. You can check it out. You can always come back to these and like check out for the specific data if you want. And that's including for educational attainment. I often hear the argument, well, they're just in lower paid jobs. And guess what? It's also based on education. So it's, there's some disparities, right? So um, let's see here. So I think it's really important to just understand the context of workers today. And I probably don't need to tell you that if you're in this room, that it's not always a great situation, right? But something I want us to think about is the following. Um, I want us to think about just a second here. What what's your vision for what a healthy workplace could be? What would matter to you personally? And how would that look in practice? So I'm going to drop that in chat in a minute, but I want us to pause and take a step back and as a basis to kind of as moving forward when we're thinking about worker co-ops and what that could look like for you and your group and your community, I want you to think about these questions and answer them. So we're going to do breaks. Um, let's see, could we do breakout rooms of 2 to 3 people? Does that sound good? And we're going to share. So yeah, anything before we break out? Okay. And we'll have maybe 5 or 10 minutes. So, you can just think for a few minutes and then um, share with your partner, and then we'll come back and share. So yeah. Do you got that? Oh, yep. Okay, great.
Oh yeah. Can everyone see the breakout rooms?
Nice. Yep.
You're also able to join Esther. I feel like if I think you can join all of them if you want. Like, are you able to see that option?
Yeah,
Mhm.
thank
Yeah.
you. Appreciate it. Thank you. And then, do any of the folks who are still in this room need help getting to your breakout room? Okay, so we'll pause record. I'll pause our recording if that's all right with you. And okay, now it's recording. Sorry. So yeah, it's really important to keep those values in mind and who we are, where we're coming from. Um, so yeah, I'm going to keep going with this little PowerPoint. Just a second here. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out the screen thing, the screen. Okay. Oh, did I just share the WebEx page? I'm so sorry. My bad. Um, just a second. Okay. Are you seeing my PowerPoint now?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Great. Oh, yeah. And also for the next workshop, I'll keep in mind to add a little more time to the breakouts. So thank you for letting me know. But yeah, there are a lot of reasons someone may form a worker co-op. And, you know, there's a lot of significance, like to have a voice and a say in what impacts your daily life. We are at work so much of our lives, right? Like it's a big chunk of our time. We have one life on this planet, and a lot of it's at work. For better or worse, that's where we're at with capitalism right now. You know what I'm saying? Like, so how do we have that reflect our relationships that we want to have with each other and create good, healthy workplaces where we feel we can live more wholly and fully as people, like if we're parents or if we're um, in an industry where workers aren't always treated well, like say childcare or cleaning. Every worker has dignity. How do we create that in practice? And this is especially important if you're not always able to easily exert that power in your daily life or work. You can't always speak up to the boss in your regular job. So like if it's not co-op, especially, so how do you speak up for yourself in your work? And the co-op model is a tool to do so. And yeah, and this is 5 Point Holistic Healthcare in Chicago. They're a great worker co-op. Um, so yeah, worker co-ops are part of building this solidarity economy and resiliency. Um, it's a tool that we can use to support each other. This is a photo from the USFWC, the US Federation of Worker Co-ops conference this year. These are some of my friends from mostly the region, Midwest, but not all. So people start co-ops for unmet needs sometimes, for market power imbalances, problems with alternatives, like maybe you can't get a good enough paying job somewhere, or you know you want to be treated with respect at your workplace, to have control and ownership over decision making, to have more innovation. Sometimes people have really good ideas and are acting in an entrepreneurial spirit, and you want to get that idea out there and create a whole new business. There's some really creative worker co-ops out there. Another reason is to have community support and, translate that into a business. Collective entrepreneurship is another element, and the ability to do things together that one couldn't do on their own. So you're stronger together. I like to say, like with the Johnny group, um, oops, oh no, sorry. Um, with the Johnny group, I like to say that we're like pieces of a puzzle because we each have different skill sets. So we do education, programmatic work, support for predominantly BIPOC cooperatives. I'm Mexican American, and then the rest of the folks are African American, and we all found that there was a need in our communities to have more tailored co-op development. And we started around 2020, 2021, before a lot more co-op groups started that were aimed at that were of and aimed and for excuse me, of and for BIPOC communities. And I like to say that we're pieces of a puzzle because we have someone who's a CPA and specializes in finance. We have someone who's a lawyer. We have someone who does tech, and we can come together to provide um, a little, suite of services. So I think there's that element of we're stronger together, you know? And let's see here. So, and also I think it's really powerful that, um, there's a strong sense of concern for community with a lot of worker co-ops. And coming from and reflecting our communities and where we're coming from. So I really love this example of a worker co-op. This is Caba Co-op in Puerto Rico, and they're a worker co-op cave tour guide company. And so they like give tours of these caves. Um, and there's like a mother-daughter pair that led our tour. It was really nice. And they also share an element of they have discuss they have layers of environmental sustainability, and also discussing the indigenous peoples there. And you can see some of the drawings that folks did a long time ago. And they talk about where they came from and help people appreciate nature and where our communities come from. And it's really special. It's really nice. So I think that's a cool example. Um, Another example of concern for communities of co-ops doing this work in practice, worker co-ops, is during COVID. So during COVID, CHCA, which is the largest worker co-op in the US, they distributed face masks to their worker owner home care providers. So they're a home care co-op. And they needed masks to stay healthy and safe, right? And so Isthmus Engineering in Madison, Wisconsin is a worker co-op, and they made all these masks. And they donated 4,000 face shields to this co-op. And Equal Exchange provided storage and distribution of masks for the home care co-ops. So that's like some collaboration right there. That's a lot of like co-ops working together. Um, you may not like it wouldn't normally make sense. Like you wouldn't normally see this in like between a home care business, a manufacturing business, and a fair trade coffee company. Like those wouldn't normally work together in most of the world, but in co-ops, it is our real world. It is our world. It is how we function. It's with community in mind. Another great example during COVID is the Brooklyn Packers doing mutual aid. So they share how they're a Black worker-owned food distribution co-op operating with a food justice lens, and they have a CSA. So, I think that's pretty cool. They help people get food during COVID and during times of need. Um, so yeah, let's talk a little bit more about worker co-ops. Um, so just some overview. There are roughly 750 to over 1,000-ish worker co-ops in the US. It's not an exact number, but that's the estimate. So, so out of all of the co-op types, like out of farming co-ops, grocery co-ops, um, consumer, worker co-ops are actually the smallest. So we have the smallest number of worker co-ops compared to, say, ag co-ops. There's a huge range of estimates for how many co-ops there are in the US. It's anywhere from roughly 30 to probably 50,000. Um, my guess is it's probably around 30 or 40 thousand. So we're just a small little number, the worker co-op sector is, but that's okay. We're strong but powerful. In fact, they have grown significantly over the last decade. So when I was growing up and my dad was doing worker co-op work in the 80s and 90s, I honestly never thought there would be this many worker co-ops in the US, like in my lifetime. So this is pretty cool. It's like really exciting to me when I go to these conferences, the worker co-op conferences, and I don't know a lot of people because that means it's growing, more people are getting involved. So that's really cool, I think. Um, and then the average size is about 6 members per co-op, and they're majority BIPOC and majority women owned. So, that makes sense when you look at all that data on worker stats and like how people are experiencing work from different demographics, that actually makes a lot of sense, right? Do you think? Um, yeah. And then the gross revenue for all worker co-ops is in the millions. That's an estimate as well. Um, and then the median firm revenue, that seems high to me, but it might be accurate based on like the data set they had. But the point to make with that median firm revenue, which is like 600,000 a year, um, is that worker co-ops, there are many very successful worker co-ops. So where I used to work at Equal Exchange is now like they bring in like 60 million a year. It's a lot of money. That's a worker co-op. Um, and so, like I think like a critique you'll hear of worker co-ops is that they can't be big, they can't be successful, they're not enough. They're never enough. But in reality, you know what? Like, they can be successful businesses. They often are. Um, workers know, they can learn and know what they're doing. And um, we are enough. Um, and when we work together, our scale is actually stronger. So like, even though there might be a lot of small worker co-ops, when we work together, like in the examples we just shared, we're actually stronger. So, yeah. And this data is from the Democracy at Work Institute's data collection. They collect data every, I think, every 2 years, but it might be every year. Anyway, so that's where that's from. Those stats are from, and these stats as well. So the industries that worker co-ops tend to be in, the top 5 industries are food and beverage, like restaurants, cafes, coffee shops, um, business support services. There are a lot of groups like Ajani, like that do like business support, whether that's back-end services like accounting or helping write a business plan, etc. They're in food and beverage, like agricultural co-ops. Several are in cleaning, and they're like a bunch in like engineering and manufacturing, which is interesting. And again, you can see the chart down there where, there's just a lot of co-ops starting and growing. And yeah, a bunch started in the 2010s. Although it might be that with this data, they didn't get to reach out to like all the new ones. So like it might be a little skewed to the 2010s. Okay. Um, let's see, what time is it? Do we need a little break? Oh, it's 6 o'clock. Yeah. So I think let's take a 5 minute break. Before we do though, does anyone want does anyone have questions or comments so far on what we've been talking about? Insights?
Yeah, if anyone has any questions, then they can add it to the chat, or if you want to take a brief pause in the Q&A, we also will take questions at the end as well. But if you have any questions along the way, then you can also add them to the chat.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, we'll come back and talk a little bit more about how they function, how worker co-ops function in practice, and also some of the history of worker co-ops. So let's just take a 5 minute break. We'll come back at 6:09 and we'll keep going. So see you in a few. Video. Thank you. Awesome. Okay. I think we're recording, right? We're recording. Good. Okay, cool. Okay, so we had a little break. So now I'm going to share a little bit more about more history of worker co-ops. Um, and then we're going to go over what they look like in practice, like some of the ways that they function, and some steps to get started, and also discuss what your steps are to get started. So I'm happy to talk through it. We can save the end for, you know, talking through your particular situation. Like if you want to bring your, like what you're trying to do to, talk about it as like within a worker co-op context or co-op context, we can talk about that and, you know, get each other's ideas and all of that. So, all right. How's that sound to folks? All right, cool. So I'm going to keep going. Current slide. Awesome. Thanks. So yeah. All right. So I want to share a little history. Okay. And the first slide is what is typically discussed with worker co-ops. And it's often from a very white perspective. Okay. And the next slides are more fill in some of the gaps of knowledge that folks had because they weren't, looking outside their bubble, right? So we get to look at a little richer history with more BIPOC worker co-op examples. And also just remember, as we're talking about worker co-ops and co-ops, like Lori mentioned earlier, our communities have been doing this work, right? And just, and the communities in general, but like I think Um, Particularly BIPOC communities have often been working together in ways to support each other that may have been outside a legal framework or may have been more like organic. And that's really powerful. That's pretty cool. So I really just want to keep that in mind. And so, as we learn about these different examples, um, to remember that, the legal incorporation, that sort of thing, is not the only way to act in a cooperative way and live out our values. So, but some history, a little bit of history, um, with worker co-ops. So the Mondragon co-ops in Spain. Has anyone heard of those? Wait, let me get out of here. Sorry. My screen keeps like blocking people if I click the wrong thing. So yeah, so I see one thumbs up. Has anyone give a little thumbs up if you've heard of Mondragon co-ops in Spain? Okay. So yeah, a few folks. Um, does anyone want to share anything about them? What do you know about them?
I just know there's a lot of them and they're everywhere in every sector.
Great answer. Yeah, that's great. Um, nice. So yeah, so they were started in the 50s by a priest, Arizmendi, Father Arizmendi, and they're in the Mondragon in Spain, in the Basque region of Spain, and they actually were somewhat of a movement against fascism, um, and so and they've been very successful. And part of their success has been through, like, a big takeaway for me personally is part of their success is through their collaboration and their principle six of co-ops working together. So they created kind of like their own economy, their own sector, economic sector in this region, and then they expanded. Um, yeah, I'm going to leave it there. There's, some other dimensions to them, but I will leave it there for now. Um, and then also in the US, as we know it, um, the Knights of Labor were another worker co-op group in the 1860s, and they were like um, industrial worker co-ops. And so, you know, they're another example of worker co-ops, like one of the first ones in what we know as the US today. Um, I found it interesting because I had I and so I linked to the article in this PowerPoint. You can read these articles that I have here, and you can read a lot more. I actually didn't know a lot of this history. So I was happy that I stumbled upon, like I was looking up a little more details, and I was really pleased to stumble upon some of this history of worker co-ops in California. So like there was a wave coming out of the Great Depression. There were a bunch or some in hotspots in Compton and Oakland. Um, it makes me want to learn more. So I don't know. There's actually not a ton of written history about worker co-ops. There's a lot about co-ops, but worker co-ops doesn't have quite as much detail. I will say too, the Red Scare like suppressed some co-op development because it was seen as like socialist, right? Or communist, which depends who you ask. But but sorry. Um yeah, so but like, the Red Scare obviously was something that was like very, very harmful to a lot of communities that were doing community organizing. And sadly, like I think that impacted some of the development of worker co-ops. It was kind of a scary time in this country. And let me see here. Let me see if I can do this. this is, yeah. All right. So, and then I also found this other article about co-ops that mentioned worker co-ops specifically. Again, like there's a ton on co-ops in general, but like with worker co-ops, um, this is from Open Harvest Co-op. And again, you can read this. This article is very good. I highly recommend you read it. But it mentions how in the 60s there were some worker co-ops coming out of the civil rights movement. Okay. Um, let's see here. And then I also wanted to make sure that you saw this excellent diagram of African American co-ops history in the US. And I think some of them are worker, there's some like, some of it's a little bit blurry how you categorize them. Um, but this is from the Deep Co-op on Instagram. So I screenshotted their Instagram. This is a really nice piece they put together. Um, and you can read through some of this history. I'm hoping that some of the other workshops touch upon this more in depth because this is like worker co-op specific, so I don't go too in depth because a lot of these aren't worker co-ops, but I want you to have access to this information and be able to check it out. Um, and know that worker co-ops are often also part of Black history. They're also part of Latinx history. So in 2019, I wrote Dr. Jackson, I wrote Latinx Co-op Power in, in collaboration with the Dr. Jessica Gordon Emhard. Love Jessica. She is awesome. Um, I don't think it would have happened without her. I think she was a big reason that I was able to get help funded to get this funded. So I really appreciate that. Um, and at that time, yeah. And so I just want to give a big shout out to her. She's really important person. Um, but yeah, so a lot of these it turned out a lot of the Latinx co-ops that we found were worker co-ops. So that's great. And you can read the report if you want. And then I also want to note that the largest worker co-op in the US with 1,600 worker owners, 1,600. The average size is 6. You know what I'm saying? I was at a big one at Equal Exchange and we only had 100. This is like 16 times that. Is CHCA, Cooperative Home Care Associates in the Bronx. They are amazing. They are home care workers. They have their stuff together. They are incredible. So again, celebrate them. Let's celebrate them in our hearts right now. You can read more information at that link. Yeah. Okay. Wait. Okay, just a second here. So yeah, I'm going to skip through some of the models of co-op development. You can look at those if you want. I put this together just like trying to coordinate, like show how there are different ways worker co-ops are created. Um, it can be grassroots, it can be through a helpful supportive organization, an association, etc. Okay. I'm also going to skip this because just for time, but I'm going to keep going here. You can look at that later if you want. And I want to talk about how co-ops work in practice, worker co-ops. So what you'll often see is a governance structure where there's a worker owner body, the members. So the worker owners and the members in worker co-ops. Um, um, and then there'll often be this board of directors, but usually there'll be at least majority worker co-op, if not 100%. And then you might have management. This is one example of governance. This is not how every co-op is governed. But I thought it's a example to start with. That's how equal exchange was. So I'm going to give you more examples in a minute though. So within that governance context, you want to think about the worker owners as being like the primary leads of the decision making and the power structure. So work it and own it. And with co-ops, with worker co-ops, members have shared and equal ownership and governance. And so I just mentioned the governance part, right? Like the decision making, who makes decisions, how are they made? And along with that is the one member, one vote concept. So each worker owner, each member gets one vote, okay? And they're equal votes. The co-op decides what they decide on. So it could be, everything from every decision or almost every decision to the big decisions. And like at Equal Exchange, we decided we only decided on big decisions. So we decided whether or not to purchase a fair trade banana company that wanted us to buy them to save because they were going under, but they wanted our support. They wanted to keep going and they wanted us to purchase them. So we voted yes or no. We ended up voting yes as a buddy. But some co-ops may vote on salary or whether or not to do health care through the co-op versus a pay raise versus childcare. There are a lot of decisions to make, right? That affect everybody. And the ownership piece legally comes through the share, one voting share. So it's a co-ops are businesses. And in theory, that you have one voting share. And so at Equal Exchange, I was there a year. I did training and onboarding and education. I learned how to be a worker owner. The full worker owner body voted on whether or not I could join as a worker owner, not just a worker, not just an employee, but a full worker owner member. And they voted yes. I was very fortunate. I worked hard to get that. They voted me in. And once they voted me in, I purchased one voting share. And at Equal Exchange, it was like roughly 3,000, 4,000. I didn't have that. So I was able to pay for it over time out of my paycheck. Okay. But that's the ownership part. And so that's that one member, one vote part. Okay. So like we each had one voting share. I'll keep talking about this in future iterations and hopefully it'll come together if it's not fully clear yet. So again, in a worker co-op, worker owners own the business, they democratically control it and benefit from the business based on labor contribution. So, some important things to remember with worker co-ops are that, as a worker owner, you have rights and responsibilities. So you have a right to information. Like you have a right to know how the finances are going. You have a right to know because it's your business. You have a right to speak up. You also have a responsibility to speak up because you need to be a good, steward of your business. You have a responsibility to be involved and active. Again, it's your business, so there's that rights and responsibilities component. And with decision making, so to tease apart a little bit of like two parts of that. So like the governance, there's governance versus management and operations. So governance is usually the higher level strategic thinking, impacts the whole co-op kind of decision making. It takes place in the forms of the board or board committees, the worker owner body, general circles. It depends on your structure of worker co-op, but those are some ways it takes shape. Management makes decisions on the day-to-day operations. It might be a traditional top-down, like you have a manager, they have a manager, business, or it might be collectively run. It might have circles of responsibility. So you want to think like, which hat are you wearing when you make those decisions? Um, so you want to think about like, are you making a decision with your worker owner hat on, board of directors, management, staff, head of a department, etc. For example, with salaries. As a worker owner, as a worker, I want to get paid as much as I can. I need more money, right? Um, as a responsible worker owner, where I want to make sure the business sustains itself, I want to find a middle ground between how much I get paid and how much the business can afford reasonably, right? So that's kind of like a checks and balance in your head for some of the decisions and a way to look at making decisions. I see a question. How did you work hard to get voted in? Great question. So first of all, I did my job and, did my best at learning it. You know, um, I was an interfaith program representative, and so I would, do my work. I learned how to do mass emails. I went to conferences and, promoted our fair trade products. Um, and I also completed a checklist of educational requirements that every new worker owner is supposed to go through. So I learned about the history of our co-op. I attended a bunch of trainings, how to be on the board training. I attended a worker owner body training. I got prepared. And so that's how you worked to get in. If I was lazy, I wasn't a good worker, it was a bad coworker, I annoyed everybody all the time. I didn't do any of the trainings, it's not someone you want to be a coworker with forever, right? So yeah. Does that make sense? My values? Yes. Like to the other worker owners?
First, it does make sense what you were saying, and I'm especially interested in that. The idea of a kind of protocol to get into the community, I guess. You have to make certain kinds of agreements. Everybody has to make certain kinds of agreements in order to be accepted.
Mhm.
And I'm just sort of wondering, looking at it from the outside, looking at it from your experience, I can see what you're saying exactly. But what was it like, or what is it like for somebody to create this list of protocols? How do you do that without too much infighting? You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Oh yeah, for sure. Um, and there's also a question, is that a typical process in these kinds of companies where there's some people who work there who aren't or aren't yet owners? Yes. So there's often a trial period. In fact, I'm going to jump ahead and then I might stop there in a minute. I'll come back for a little bit, but I want to jump ahead just to show you since this is coming up. Um,
Wow, she's got it's so dense.
so dense. I know. I thought I thought I had more time.
Sorry,
Sorry.
my
That's my
microphone is on, but that's a
sorry.
lot of information. I love it.
Oh, good.
Thank.
Good.
No, it's good. It's a good thing.
Okay. Thank God. Okay. So, um, okay, so at Equal Exchange, I use my personal experience because I think it's like most concrete. Otherwise, it just feels really theoretical, I think. Um, at Equal Exchange, after I was a worker owner, I joined their education committee. And so um, the education committee, which was a committee of the worker owner body, so had a legal basis, all that. Um, over time, over years, created all of these elements and ways to get people engaged, and um, the checklists where people, you know, go through all of the stuff you see and more, to make sure that people are well educated worker owners. Like these, we decided as a worker owner body that this is the training that we'll use. Um, Sometimes there would be little updates, but it's something that is thoughtfully taken over time. It usually includes like what is a co-op, co-op basics, worker co-op basics, um, understanding the particular company history, understanding that particular industry. So you want to be knowledgeable in whatever industry you're in, right? And yeah, so there are different ways that can take shape. I wrote an article there that is also going to be available in the PowerPoint, that will hopefully give a little more background. But yeah, there is a trial period because even though it's like open membership is part of the co-op values and principles, um, it doesn't mean that you have to hire everybody or anybody, just anyone who wants to come. It actually, it needs to be non-discriminatory by race or class or whatever. You can't be discriminatory or prejudiced like that way. But you need to look at these things, say, are they someone that I feel comfortable to share business with? Do they have the same values? Someone mentioned values. You know, are are they someone who's going to challenge the company too much in the long term and change it into like a sad corporation? We don't want them to work with us, forever. So I just want to highlight a few resources before I stop for questions. We have co-op structure decision making resource here. The USFWC, the US Federation of Worker Co-ops, has incredible what are called mini guides they just came out with. These are so helpful. I love them. They're flyers. You can download them. You can look them up, print them off. So I really encourage to check those out. Um, there's also this DAWI decision making chart template. Like what does your co-op want to make decisions on, and where do they go? Um, there's a member matrix to talk about how much to, for example, like how much can people afford reasonably for the stock, voting one voting share, what to buy that one voting share. This is another resource for that, setting membership fees. And if you can come back to the next one, um, we can talk a little more about what that looks like. You can look through this if you want. Um, Basically, like, to get started, talk with other co-ops. I always recommend peer-to-peer learning. Find co-ops that are in similar industries or regions or a local co-op association. Um, See if there's a co-op developer to be of support. I highly recommend checking out usworker.coop. And like Kelly was saying, like, build it on this basis of trust. This is really key. This is actually very key. And I've seen several co-ops fail because they don't have this. They have everything but this, and they fail at times. It's really sad. It's actually very sad. So you really need to build like respect, um, and communication, like comfort communicating over hard things. Here are some steps. Again, we can go over this next week. But yeah, I'll stop there for Q&A, and I appreciate your listening to all my slides. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Esther. So if now we'll open up the forum for questions. If anyone has any questions, they can add it to the Q&A, sorry, the chat. And or you can unmute yourself and we can take questions now. I don't know if you answered this, but I might have missed this. Deb said, is that a typical process in these kinds of companies where there are some people who work there who aren't yet owners?
Yeah, I touched on that, but I could say a little more if you want. Um, so yeah, so there is a trial period, and a worker co-op can also decide to hire um like contractors or part-time employees, or like if someone doesn't want to be a worker co-op owner. I'll give a few examples. So I'm working right now with one co-op that is um opening up membership to the full worker co-op body. Like, they kind of should have done this before, but that's okay. Better late than never, you know what I'm saying? And they're making it clearer. They have support, they've been doing this, and maybe only half of the people want to become worker owners right away. The others want to kind of wait and see how it goes. It's a little scary to become a worker, like an owner of a business together with all these people, right? So that might be a case where they're like, well, yeah, understandable. Um, so they're making that okay. They aren't making people just leave. Another example is at Equal Exchange. Um, you had to be full-time to become a worker owner track. And so there are a few part-time, sorry, these note takers. There are a few part-time people who didn't want to be worker owners or didn't have time capacity to be full-time, so they weren't qualified, but they were still key to our business. Or we had consultants here and there. We also had temporary seasonal workers during Christmas holiday season because we needed to ship a lot more than usual. And it was very busy, so we would only have them work like another couple months, throughout the whole year, just a couple months. So those are some examples.
Those resources you were showing there before with like the spreadsheets and whatnot, can you share a link to those or s- point me in that direction again?
Yeah, are those going to be sent out after this to the attendees?
We can share the PowerPoint. Are the links in the PowerPoint?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay, all right,
Or
I'll send
I
you
have,
an email.
yeah,
Okay.
that'd be great.
Okay,
I have a PDF of the PowerPoint that should have the
okay,
links. Yeah.
okay. Are you okay with
Yeah, I'd
sending
love
it
to
to you?
read through the PowerPoint anyway. So
Yeah, I won't make, if Esther's comfortable with it, then we can share it with the participants today.
Yeah, and it also
Would that
has
be okay?
what's that?
Okay, would that be okay if we shared it with the people over like email?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
we'll share it with you.
cool. And I also put
yeah,
my information in chat if you want to email me about anything specific, whether with a loan or with shared capital or with co-op organizing work, whatever, or just to like connect with someone else.
cool. Thank you.
Thank you. And any other like thoughts or insights, or how does this feel to you? Like, how are you feeling about this stuff? Like,
Esther, I've got a question, just a thought. Do you think the transition or the creating of a worker co-op, do you find it easier if it started from scratch or if there's a business that wants to use this worker co-op as a transition from being traditional and because they're already retired, sell the business, and I want my legacy to continue. And I go to the table with the, is it easier to make that transition as a succession planning or starting from scratch?
oh, that's a good question. Oh man, this is not the answer you may want to hear, but it depends. Sorry. Um, yeah, I'd say, and some factors are, okay, I'd say the most successful like transitions of an existing business to a worker co-op are where the worker owners are, I mean, the new worker owners, the workers are very engaged and involved in, excuse me, in like some of that decision making already, like their day-to-day operations. Like the selling owner has given the workers a lot of responsibility, delegated a lot of the work. They already know what they're doing. So when that owner leaves, it's more or less, it's pretty darn smooth. Like in practice, there's not a lot that's shifted in the day to day. Also, where they have a lot of co-op training on and interest. So some of it's assessing the workers' interest in wanting to be worker owners. Um, and so like, you know, I've seen some co-ops where people just they want to have a job, but they don't want to be a worker owner. And they made some poor, frankly, not great decisions around finances, around their business. There's, you know what I'm saying? And it's hard to teach care. It's hard to teach passion. Like you can do a little and kind of try to guide people. Um, but yeah, so those are some factors, and also like with the selling owner, excuse me, you don't want them to like sorry. There are also issues where sorry, giving me some flashbacks here. No,
I didn't mean to stress you.
no,
I
I'm
really did.
sorry. I'm so sorry. No, this is great. It's a good question. You don't want the business price, the purchase price to be too expensive than what the people can actually afford, or else it's just kind of creating a debt cycle that feels really bad and they may not succeed in the long run if they have really high payments each month. And I've seen that as a lender now. I'm like, oh God, like we have to make sure these are fair deals, you know, and double check that valuation. You know, COVID skewed the numbers a lot. So we really, we have to do more analysis. Um, and at the same time, with grassroots groups, it can be hard to like start up. It can be really hard to get everyone on the same page at once. And the capital needed and like to have immediate full-time salaries is very hard. So it can be helpful to have like a grant or nonprofit or an incubator to help guide that part of the process. But it's not impossible, and a lot of groups do it. So yeah.
Okay. All
What do
right.
you think? What do you think? Is it
Oh, well, I think because I'm thinking again through the lens of wanting to be that facilitator to just bring the idea of a co-op to an audience of existing business owners who are thinking about their succession planning, and just to give them, some basic understanding that will, if they are interested, then we'll take a deeper dive.
Mhm.
Um, Now I can go to another scenario for you where um, I'm a part of my family. Um, I always call my dad's siblings the Great Eight. And the Great Eight, that they own a lot of property here in North Carolina. And so they too are now in this legacy mode to make sure that next generation doesn't screw it up
Mm. Mhm.
and lose this land. And so there's been some thought of starting a business. And this is, I'm just going to throw it out there. I hope I'm not taking up everybody's time, but they're thinking about taking
Please.
2 acres that's right along good road frontage that's got a view of the lake, and making it a food truck park. But I don't want anybody,
Oh,
one person, to own it. So that's why I'm thinking, how can we do this so that it's for the Great Eight and their heirs, so that it still remains in the hands of everybody? So am I going down the right path thinking about a co-op
yeah.
for that?
Oh, I love it. Yes. That's exciting. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Like, um,
And so they already own the land straight out. No,
yeah,
no, it's free and clear. So
that's wonderful. And yeah, like that would be a good idea for like, let me think here. So they could either like have a joint agree like management of the land where the worker manager like they, help develop the land together as a business and all that. And then, or they could have it where the food trucks are the members, you want to think about who are the members.
okay, because I was
And
thinking about
yeah.
the management, the organizing and the management of it is the Grade Eight. And
Mm-hmm.
then I hadn't even thought about the food trucks
I
being
mean, if you wanted.
members.
Hmm. It could be
Uh,
a hybrid.
okay.
We could talk if you want.
We will. We will. I'm
Hmm.
sorry, guys.
Don't
Hopefully my
apologize.
questions
You're
help
no need.
somebody else.
Yeah, and
I
also if you
see
want.
I see Deb affirming me, so I'm good.
Oh, good, good. Yeah, yeah. I know it's like really interesting. And also like, through shared capital, if you wanted to do a workshop with the like selling owners, let me know if you want me or someone else to present on because I have a whole workshop on that if you want for selling owners. So mhm. Yeah.
So I think we'll start wrapping up because we have one more question. I know we have one question in the chat.
Okay.
But I think Deb said something. I'm curious about what you saying work or not work related to management. We're talking to someone who is in business that transitioned to co-op and they're really having trouble not having a lead CEO person to guide the ship.
Okay, yeah. Um, is there, well, let me think here. I'm trying to think like in this case, is there a CEO that is leaving and they're worried about them leaving, or is it more like they're just kind of not doing great already? Like,
Yeah, well, I think they've lost a CEO, but they sort of transitioned, I think, during COVID. So it was like I don't know that it was one of those really well planned, really well prepared for transitions.
sure.
So my impression is that, and they ended up with 6 owners, but now they're down to 3 owners. So it just seems like they're really struggling with how do we do this as a worker co-op when what we're used to is like the more traditional hierarchical model. And so it seems like, so I was just curious about, and maybe there's not one answer, like you said, there's a range of ways you can manage these and have it work. So maybe it's not what works best, but some like what you were talking about with Carolyn, what are the components that help with effective management of a worker-owned co-op?
I would help them make a plan. And if I'm just trying to think like what would, and I feel like other people like Lori might have good insights too. But I would help them make a plan, and in the interim phase, maybe hire a general manager who's familiar with that industry and just say, hey, this is a 1 year contract. And in that 1 year, we're going to get really prepped. We're going to figure things out. We may or may not keep you there, like make sure it's real clear so they know what they're getting into. You don't want to like take advantage. But that could be one way to do it. And then help them help them and then set out a schedule for training on the man. It sounds like it's maybe both the operations and the governance co-op part.
Yeah, and what I'm hearing from you in this idea is that, and I know I saw something from Lori too, is it's almost like, okay, let's take a step back. Like we sort of jumped into this head first and now we're like flailing a bit. One way to take a step back would be to have someone who's managing, but they're not like in the partnership for the long term necessarily, so that they can they can then kind of back up and be working on, and what Lori's saying too, like working on the principle. Oh, it could be one of the owners who's already working. Yeah, what he's saying is that none of the 3 of them are really ready or able to do that. It's a really cool organization. The guy that I'm talking about started working there when he's 14 and he's 30 and he's one of the owners, young African-American guy. So I think all of the owners are pretty young and, it's just a lot and they're actually quite successful in a lot of ways. So it's a lot to manage. So yeah, I think I think that could be a really useful idea for them to sort of think about how could we have someone help us keep this running while we back up a little bit and figure out what kind of worker co-op we want and what the components are, and maybe they need to get more connected with some more supports as well, including the Network for Developing Conscious Communities, which they may already be involved with. I'm not sure. I'll have to check.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like maybe Lori, you're saying this, but it could be someone in a management role there already, or that wants to train up,
Yeah, I'm getting the
or
impression that they
they don't.
don't have that right now.
Yeah.
That the 3 of them who are owners at this point, worker owners, they're having trouble with any of them. He's not talking like any of them could do it right now.
Mhm.
But
Okay,
maybe
yeah.
with support, one of them could too. That's the other thing, is maybe they just need someone to come alongside to help that person, you know, be able to do that. So that's another thing to think about, I think. Thank you. I
Thank
also don't
you.
want to take up all your time with like a,
You're good. No, I think it's really important to like um find that balance of giving ourselves space and also like believing in ourselves as workers and believing in fellow workers to have the capacity to learn. And as workers, we're not always told that we can learn. We're often told we're not smart enough for a higher paying job. And that's not fair. That's not true. I think like every job is meaningful. I think we should like get paid personally. I know this is like recorded, but whatever. I think we should all get paid, you know, the same, you know, like I think we need to be more equitable in this society. Personally, you don't have to agree. And a lot of co-ops have different pay rate ranges. That's just my personal 2 cents. But I think yeah. Um yep. And so like I think that you know that but having some support can be a way to give them that space to grow and be, you know, learn what they need to learn and feel competent and comfortable. Because it can be scary to take on new responsibilities, or especially if you don't know what they are yet. You know, like I wouldn't know how to be a um, CPA or, you know, like I would need to learn, you know? So yeah, and helping them see that in themselves, you know? And also maybe
Yes.
getting like a co-op developer help. There might be, you know, someone with a co-op specific experience.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Lori, for your time today. If anyone has any closing comments or anything, if you want to make any closing comments before we end today, but I do want to thank you from the Network for Development Conscious Community, everyone who attended, and you as well, Esther. Thank you so much. It was very insightful, very helpful. Hopefully, everyone felt that's the same as well.
Thank you all. I appreciate your insights. Thanks for coming.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, everyone. And with that, I just wanted to remind you that next week we do have the second part as well, which Esther will also be speaking on that. So if there's anything left or any other questions you might have, and that'll be more on like the development process. So I think that'll also be very insightful. So I want to encourage you all to register for that. And if you haven't, we have the registration on our website and we'll also on our social media. And with that, thank you so much, everyone. Hope you have a wonderful night. Thank you.